The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
Kick off the 2020 NCAAs on Wednesday, March 18th at the Barn at Cowboy Jackson, downtown Minneapolis. Presented by J-Rob Intensive Camps and Track Wrestling, the 7-7 pregame party will feature 7 high-profile guests with connections to the wrestling community, including business people, entertainers, athletes, and coaches. Dan Gable, 1972 Olympic gold medalist, 2-time NCAA champion, and 15-time national champion head coach, is the first booked guest. The full lineup of featured guests will be revealed via J-Rob Intensive Camps and Track Wrestling social media in the coming weeks. Event proceeds will be donated to Take Down Cancer, an initiative of the Randy Shaver Cancer Research and Community Fund. Shane Sparks of Track Wrestling and the Big Ten Network will serve as the event MC. Sparks will interview each of the 7 guests for 7 minutes, the length of the collegiate wrestling match mirroring the format of Track Wrestling's popular 7 Minutes Q&A series. Come celebrate the sport of wrestling with friends while supporting a great cause. Tickets purchased online include a complimentary drink for those 21 and up. Ticket quantities are limited, so reserve your space now for this exciting kickoff party. And for more information, go to 7in7party.com and get your tickets today. No, when I was recording shots, it was like I'd sit there and I'd record it, and I'd do a Facebook Live. And by the way, Richard Immel's here on Short Time. We're just going to go right into it, episode 594, from the Monarch Speakeasy is what I called it initially when I had the idea of building this. Now I don't know if it's a Speakeasy studio. Richard, I'm still looking for names. You are the first in-Speakeasy guest here on Short Time. The plan is to build a bar. When people come into town, they sit down, they come down and join me for a beverage, talk wrestling stories, and you, sir, are the guinea pig for this in my my Narnia door. It's not quite fully sound-treated yet, but I got a fold-out table and we're doing a show. This is like the true podcast in your basement stuff. But welcome to my hidden lair.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm stunned by how much the basement has changed in the past few months. We don't need to go into specifics of what all has happened in the basement, but yeah, this is impressive. So, talking to the mic.
Yeah, that would be a start because,
like Golic and Wingo, turn your mic on. Stupid.
That's it. I'm just making sure that our levels are good, riding the levels. Because
here, let me switch my. Yeah, there we go.
Act like you did 100 and some episodes of bonus points.
I didn't do 100. Well, I guess if you count the one. Little short one-offs I did. Maybe I got over 100.
Bonus bites? There was absolutely 100.
Yeah, with the bonus
I think there was
bites.
100. I think I did the stats today. I think there was 107 of them.
Best 107 episodes of podcasting you'll ever hear.
It's pretty good. I'm at 5. I've hit 594. And I've had some snoozers in there, but got back on it after I retired shots for the second time.
Sometimes they can be snoozers. It all depends on the guest. When you have a guest-centric show, man, it makes it tough because sometimes you have notes. I see you have notes here this time. Good for you.
The reason we have notes is we're going to get to that story eventually, but there is a specific reason when Richard came over after work. Yes, he lives 15 minutes from me now. This is not, we're not Skyping here. Yeah, I have notes so we can stay on target, which we have a problem doing.
From time to time.
Like our world preview. I think I finished 3 beers per style what was that, 2017?
Yeah, well, we did one for the Olympics. We
That...
did one for 2017. Yeah, maybe 2015 too, but that one probably didn't go as crazy as the other ones. That was some good stuff.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to go back and listen because number one, I don't like listening to my own voice, so I don't listen to my own podcasts outside of editing them.
And which I edited like 2x speed anyway.
Right. So I'd be curious to listen to what we said like prior to Rio and prior to Paris.
I want to know how drunk I was. That third, we got to we get the women's. What did we go? Women's or Greco for last one? I can't remember what it was.
I don't remember, but it was great because we split it up into 3 episodes and released them at different times. So it was shot in one go, but we cut it up. So it's
a good 4 hours we spent on that episode.
Yeah, man, that was good stuff. Where was I going with that?
I don't know. Just going back and not being able to listen to yourself, and like having done bonus points and
No,
basically, I was criticizing your podcast technique because it's like you forgot to talk on a microphone all of a sudden.
To be fair, it's been a while. Blood Round which I was on last week.
Yeah,
2 weeks
now
ago.
Richard's going to start doing the circuit now. Soon
Yeah,
you'll be
I'm
on
the circuit.
I was on the inside trip last week. You'll be on the inside trip, and then I'm sure you'll show up on Home Ad Advantage sometime soon. And
Maybe,
then, you may make a cameo on FRL for all we know. You're always welcome on the Rudis podcast, by the way, which has been a pretty good 3 weeks for me.
I'm down for that. You can talk to my agent. I don't know if it should be you or Amanda.
That's Amanda of House Immel.
Yeah. So
how you guys are in my phone, by the way. Richard of House Immel and Amanda of House Immel.
it's very fitting, Yeah, back to the speakeasy here. He's not kidding when he says Narnia door. It looks like you're walking into the wardrobe and boom, beer fridge.
It's the first thing you see is the beer fridge. This is not a fridge that has it's your second fridge where you've got your fruit or something, or there will be frozen pizzas in the top of that because that's just a natural place to put frozen pizza. But
Will there be an oven to cook said frozen
No, because that is mainly the only thing in this room is for the kids.
Okay.
But there will be a coffee maker down there. I'm gonna bring the Keurig down here. So I've become a bit of a coffee fan. But too bad this isn't a visual. We could have started Facebook Live and done that. That's one thing we are going to do in the future.
See, that'd be good. Especially when you have the setup over here by the bar.
Yeah, this is bad podcasting. We're explaining to them things that they can't quite see yet.
Yeah, I'm a fan of bad podcasting, actually. Yeah. Thank you, number one, for bringing me in here. I feel exclusive. I like it.
Well, let's see. Let's think of the guests that have been in here. Chris Pendleton's been in studio guest.
Right.
Brennan Paulson's been an in studio guest. My financial planner, Jarrett Yalen's been an in studio guest, but that was about tax season. And that was
what are his rates, by the way? I'm in the market. I just got married, so it's a little more complicated.
I can hook you up there.
Okay, we'll talk.
So, he's good people. Went to high school with him. Out here, go figure. Yeah, kind of like my insurance agent. I went to college with his son in Virginia. Go figure.
Yeah, I do like the memorabilia on the walls. Let's go into this. So number one, you have the blown up poster from Paris.
From Tony Rotundo, yes.
Yes. Tony Rotundo. It's the U.S. men's freestyle world team, the whole 2017 world champions, Sajalayev and Snyder, and that whole crew. Maybe the greatest single day in U.S. wrestling history.
It's up there.
It's up there. What do we have? 3 world champs that day? Burroughs, Snyder. Oh, Green was in the finals. He got second. He lost to Chamizo. And was Gilman in the finals that day too?
Was it that day?
I can't remember. We had 4 people going that day. Anyway, I'm up there. You're up there.
Our old boss, Gary's up there.
Yeah, Gary's up there.
Tony Rotundo, the man who shot. It's rare. A photographer is actually in a picture. That's off his website. You can actually buy this picture, by the way. I bought this picture. So it's one of the, Bader's in there. You got the referees, you got Hazard, you got you. So, me and Hazard having announced, these events together. And then, you took my job when I left and now you're in my basement gloating about it. Our old boss, Gary. You got, I'm trying to look. The only woman in that picture, I think, is the former Sam Saraki, now Samantha Zadek. So it is when Bader can pass when his hair grows out long sometimes. But
let me take you on a tangent here. You mentioned something. So you've done the PA announcing for the biggest wrestling events, right? That's the World Championships right there, NCAA's, USA Wrestling events, etc. What's the biggest? Let me say most important thing for any aspiring young PA announcer?
A lot of people are going to say do your best, just do the best you can, try hard. It's about doing your best, not trying not to screw up. That's probably the best thing is go out there and, if you're doing something, don't freak yourself out. And, because I wigged out right before the Worlds in 2015. I was like, oh my God. I'm on the way to the airport. Abby's like, what are you doing? I was like, don't fuck up. I'm going to have to beep all that out. But it was like, no. 1, don't say the F word. 2, take a deep breath, do your best, not don't F up. So that's basically what happened. Was basically don't be worried about screwing up. Every single PA announcer is going to make a mistake. And whether it's 8 people or 18,000 people hear you, one person's going to hear it and one person's probably going to razz you for it. But guess what? They can't do what you do. There's a very small group of people that have, it's not a hard thing to do. It's just a difficult thing to master. So practice. Don't be afraid to work for free in the early parts of your career. If you're 19, 20, and go to your local high school and be like, hey, can I announce? And If they're willing to pay you, great. If they give you a couple slices of pizza and a soda, that's free dinner. I mean, I made a living, or I actually lived through my college years on hospitality rooms at men's and women's basketball games and wrestling tournaments. So that's money I didn't have to pay out of my college budget for food. So I don't know if there's one thing, but one, don't be afraid to screw up, because you're going to screw up. I mean, you're going to say the wrong name. You're going to call the wrong winner. Just, you got to mitigate where you say those things. I mean, you got to concentrate, stay off your phone during the important rounds. My phone is not coming out of my pocket when we get to the semifinals at NCAAs. So just again, and don't be afraid to accept no for an answer, because where there's a no, there's going to be a yes. I mean, not everybody's going to say no. So just keep trying. And
it's different than broadcasting.
Much different. But
much different.
Same basic mindset of research, and you don't want to say something if you don't know it's right or not. Or one thing for me is I don't trust anybody else's stats but mine. So if I screw up, I know where it is. And I came, like the first year at NCAAs, I'm not going to say who it is, but they handed me the list of the All-Americans per state. And I had said something about one of the wrestlers out there. And I get a text from Kerry McCoy texted me. He goes, "Hey, what about this?" And I'm like, "Yep, that was wrong." And that was the first thing I said off this stat sheet. I crumpled it up, threw it away, and looked up my own stats during the break. So trust your judgment and do your own work too. Do your own research. I rarely trust anybody else's work. So
multiple sources, that type of a thing.
Yeah. Well,
speaking of stats, I mean, where would you say is the best place to go for wrestling statistics?
It depends on what you're looking for.
Let's say I'm looking for a list of every NCAA All-American. Where would I go?
That would be, I have that on my almanac. You can dig through it other places, but almanac.mattalkonline.com. I have that. That is actually a patron or team member only type of thing. So Richard, I appreciate the pitch there. So if you contribute to this show and the network at mattalkonline.com/contribute, or you do that with a couple other things. There's the Patreon campaign, or you can do a one-time contribution, whether you want to do buy me a coffee or PayPal or whatnot. But yeah, you can get access to that. It's a digital sandbox. I'm not selling the data, but I'm selling you the access to, I'm not selling it. I'm actually, it's a perk. You're contributing here, and here's the access to the sandbox that I get all my information from. So that's, it starts at I think $5 or $10 a month, whichever one it is, but mattalkonline.com/contribute. Thank you, Richard.
You're very welcome. Yeah. I would recommend contributing. You got to tell me about this Rockfin deal too, because I saw that you just went on there.
Right. That's kind of tricky because Martin called me about it a couple months ago. And, everybody's paying attention because of Ben Askren has been on it, and he's been hawking it, and he's into crypto anyway. And then you start seeing some of the guys from Flow that started coming over. Martin, of course, that was a pretty ugly breakup there with, I'm sure Thanksgiving's fun in the Floriani house, but what platform he started, Nick Veliket's over there now. His brother Joe, who wrestled at Penn, pretty smart guys over there. There's a couple people that have come over, and then of course Ben and Martin have been friends since Flow started. So Ben's gonna, be right there with his boy on his new thing. So I'm looking at it, and as an independent content creator, I'm like, And then Martin called me, and let's be quite honest, a lot of people know the history there. There wasn't much of a history in terms of a relationship, but we had two really good conversations about it. And it was one of these things that, with the following that I've kind of got in terms of the content that I was like, well, there's really no risk for me. So what I've done is I'm putting content over there. And when I put stuff out, I don't necessarily, I write it up and where's it going to go? As an independent, I'm used to being able to write stories and get paid for them. When you're doing it on your own, it's okay, you've got the patrons that you're contributing to. And I think I've checked those boxes enough, but when I put out this feature and I kind of give it away, it's okay, that's a feature that any real publication would pay $150, $200 for, because it's not wrestling, we pay $50 to $75. Well, that's also another tangent on a tangent. But I looked at it and I jumped on it about a week and a half ago, and how they compensate it is based on people signing up and people staying on. So it's not like you sign up once and peace out. Okay, you get the sign up, but you don't really get anything from a retention. And I've been on it 10 days, and the income I've brought in for a couple stories and an event coverage day at Minnesota and Ohio State has been okay. This is worth it. And here's what I'm also doing is, Richard, I didn't bring you over here to pitch the sales, but if you sign up for a Rockfin subscription, and this has also been in the beginning of another show, you sign up for a new Rockfin subscription and you endorse Matt Talk Online, I'll give you a free preview guide, which is normally a $20 value. If you listen to this show, you can get it for $15. But a Rockfin subscription, because I'm giving you that price break because I will eventually kind of make up for it. If you stay on long enough, I'll actually get that back and it won't come out of your pocket. So that's a cool thing about it. So
it's almost like I know what I'm doing here.
Yeah, it's scary. And, and here's the one thing I caution. I actually had a conversation with a couple people about it. Some people aren't ready for it. If you don't have a following, that's not a place. You're going to have to, one, teach people that, hey, this is what I do. And then you're going to say, oh, yeah, and you got to pay for it, too. I think there's the awareness, and then there's the benefits of what I have. Because I think over the past 20 years, I've written enough that's like, okay, usually when I put something out, it's not going to be crap. There's a snoozer every now and then, or there's the one that falls flat where I think it's a great idea and it doesn't, it might be well written. It's just, it didn't work. I'm not really sure how my mascot piece turned out, but I'm a geek about mascots and stuff. So,
well, I'm a geek about like economics and business. And
like I said, I mean, it's funny because I don't know crap about crypto, but I know enough that it's been kind of interesting. Their Ray token right now is moving upwards. So, I'm up a little bit more than I was a week ago 2 weeks ago when I started this thing.
The fact that you just said the Ray token is up, like I never pictured you saying that. So we're
lot
winning.
of people. Did people ever picture me and Martin Floriani doing anything together?
No.
Anyway, so free preview guide when you sign up for Rockfin, ROKFIN.com/MattTalkOnline.
Yeah, and that preview guide, he's not asking me to say this. It's legit. I used it whenever I was covering the event. I would use it if I was just watching the event, if I went with my dad to the event. It's awesome. It's got all the stats you need to know, 330 wrestlers, bios on all of them, right?
Basically, that friend that you Google about every little piece of wrestling info or something?
Mm-hmm.
I'm usually that guy for a lot of people. Well, this is be in your hand. You can be that guy.
Yep.
You can solve the bar bets, or you can win the bar bets. I didn't realize this was going to be a long commercial. Wait till we get to the track wrestling stuff. That's going to be another commercial.
Yeah.
Gold Plus coming to a computer near you.
Hey, yeah. There's lots of good stuff going around Gold Plus right now. But let's get back to the regularly scheduled programming.
Yeah, when we did that preview of
this is how it started.
This is how it started. We started with beverages, and 45 minutes later, we finally got it into 57 kilos.
Well, you know what? I'll fill you in on a little secret. Movie magic, if you will. A lot of times if you come on as a guest and you ask questions and flip the interview around, it disarms the interviewer, gets them off track, and then you can have a real conversation. See?
I've already dropped an F-bomb on my show. I didn't even timestamp
Right. It's different between us because we're obviously friends and we've done this multiple times. But if you're meeting someone for the first time and you're just nervous, whatever, you're waiting on them to start the conversation, screw that. You start it.
Yeah.
Take it where you want to go. Control your own destiny. And you'll probably like the outcome a little bit more. Anyways, I digress.
True. And the thing is, the one, as we said, kind of in the cold open, which I don't even know if was actually making the show or not.
I think it'll be the bloopers at the end.
It'll be the bloopers at the end. Yeah. So hang tight if you want to hear this, depending on how long the show goes. Is Richard and I actually were going to start a podcast about not wrestling. It was going to be a little bit of wrestling, but it was like our favorite things about beer and Game of Thrones,
pop culture.
It was
current events.
Two mics, one brain kind of show. The preponderance of podcasts out there that are very similar. We were going to be one of those, and we did one episode, and it was freaking terrible. I used all the sound bites up that I had my buddy Wayne do voiceovers for, and
it was intended to be sound bites over a long term, like one per episode, or
I used them all.
About
a 15-minute span.
Yeah, he couldn't help himself. It was just like when someone locks you in a room and it's Big Brother, when they put the big red button in there and they say, okay, nothing happens if you don't hit the button. Everything will be fine. But if you hit the button, you could get a reward or a consequence. What do they do every single time? They hit the button.
I'll take what's in the box.
Yeah, what's in the box. What's behind the secret door. Very applicable, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all psychology, right?
Got a couple secret doors here,
Give
too.
Jason a bunch of new toys, and he's going to use them in 10 minutes.
Yeah, kind of like the standing desk I have behind me.
Yes, he's already demonstrated.
Yeah.
It's quite nice. I do like the standing desk. Yeah.
But as far as what I had on the agenda here today, in case you're wondering, I'm not going to timestamp this like some podcasts do. We're going to find out what's up with Richard. He's actually made one podcast appearance on Blood Round 2 weeks ago, I want to say, or last week.
Yeah.
Depending on what time you listen to this. You've also developed a passion for photography.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll just start with that. I mean, you're in a different role with Frac Wrestling. I mean, when that job opened up, there was a marketing job, and then there was the content job. And people naturally thought that, oh, Richard's going to go, when the word got out that you were going to go to Track Wrestling, people just naturally thought it was going to be the content job. And there was something bigger, and that was with the parent company.
Absolutely. So technically speaking, myself and all the Track Wrestling employees, as you would know them, as you see them at the event or you call in for support, you talk to them for advertising, etc. They all are Sports Engine employees. Sports Engine acquired Track Wrestling in 2016, I believe, around the same time that Sports Engine was acquired by NBC Sports. NBC Sports is obviously huge, runs up the Comcast chain. If you didn't know, Comcast owns NBC Universal, who owns NBC Sports. It's a very complex ecosystem.
And Comcast is running gigabit internet through the speakeasy
It
here.
all comes full circle, right?
Yes, it does.
So needless to say, my office is at Sports Engine. I was hired, I should say, to run the marketing efforts for Track Wrestling as a Sports Engine employee. So I am based out of the Sports Engine office, and essentially my day-to-day, I sit next to people who operate different, let's say, acquired websites or acquired businesses, or what you would not necessarily think of as a Sports Engine business, but for example, the Track Wrestling of swimming, the Track Wrestling parallel to volleyball. If you know what Golf Business Solutions is, they sit right next to me. Golf Now, if you're a golfer, you know what I'm talking about. So I interact with these people on a daily basis, and we collab together cross-functionally across different sports and across different types of marketing efforts. So lead gen, acquisition, retention, upsell, all those types of things. We have different products across the different verticals, if you want to call them verticals. But
seems to be an industry buzzword that people use.
Yeah. And I think for us, it's verticals in the sense that it's a different sport, a different product offering, a lot of complexities to it. I won't bore you with the details, but bottom line is I sit in a room every day with some just incredible people who are very knowledgeable about marketing, and I'm able to take that and apply it to wrestling specifically, which is my passion, right? So everyone else has their passions that they can be, excited about on a daily basis, and I can be in that environment. Sports Engine is a very entrepreneurial environment, very, I'd say, modern business, right? It's
one of those open co-working spaces.
Yeah,
it's got offices, but I mean, I've been in the building one time. So
right. I mean, there's very few walls. I'm not going to say there's no walls, but there's breakout rooms.
There is also a beer tap.
There is beer. Yeah, there's beer upstairs. Only after 4:30 though.
Right.
Don't get it twisted. There's also lots of coffee, donut day. Every Thursday they bring in probably about 1,000 donuts. Legit. It's like a whole table full of donuts.
That guy at Dunkin' must hate you.
No, it's actually a local place in Northeast Minneapolis. We're really big on supporting the local economy. So we order in, if we ever order in stuff, it's always from a local business to try to support those in our area, as opposed to ordering from the chains, which is cool.
There's a pretty good, I want to say there's a pretty good Greek restaurant right around the corner from there. Or is it, it's like a Mediterranean sandwich shop that's right near there. I remember having lunch after I went down there
Maybe
once.
Spitz?
Something like, I can't remember what it was.
There's a lot of good stuff. Northeast Minneapolis is a unique place. It's got the old sort of Victorian houses and these big brick warehouse type buildings, and where our office is in a warehouse that used to be a light bulb factory for GE actually, and they resurfaced the insides to essentially create office space. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool place to be. But in terms of what I do day to day, I work cross-functionally with the Sports Engine team and also the Track Wrestling people that everyone else probably interacts with on a day-to-day basis. Andy Hamilton and Kyle Klingman on content. Dennis does TrackCast events. You probably know Justin Tritz, who founded the company, so on and so forth, right? Shane Bennett, Shane Sparks.
Ryan Schilling with the giant beard and
Ryan's
dart
man.
aficionado.
I sat next to Ryan Schilling for 10 straight days in Kazakhstan. We got to know each other really well. We also ate horse, which
I ate horse as well.
Yes, we ate horse together.
Of course.
Horse, of course. Ryan, myself, the guy from Switzerland who won a bronze medal, and Nenad Lalovic. We all ate horse together, so that was cool. Anyway, I don't know where we're going with that, but that's what I do day to day.
Well, it was what the role was, because again, when you broke in, you were an intern at Flow, then
so it's
USA Wrestling, and then
you're right. I don't do content. Not to say that I.
Oh, photos are content, but
photos are content. Yes, but
you're not a content creator as far as the term has been evolved.
Correct. I'm more of, let's call it strategy behind the scenes. Andy calls me a lot. And the unique thing about track is we're all in different areas of the country. Andy and Kyle are in Iowa. We've got a crew in Wisconsin. We've got some people in Indiana, all over the place, right? So I talk to Andy a lot, and he'll pitch me ideas. Hey, what do you think about this story? What do you think about this story? Or if I have an idea, I'll call him. Hey, maybe you should do a column on this, or do this with your photos or your social media. Kyle does the same thing. He's really ramped up the social media efforts. It's been a good mixture in terms of I'm able to strategize around the content, but I'm also able to look big picture at how do I successfully deploy or engage with the wrestling economy, right? How do I'm not running the business, but I take a lot of pride in owning business strategy and how we move forward. How do we work with our different events to generate that economy around their event, to generate that interest in their event, that buzz. I work with a handful of partners on that, USA Wrestling, UWW, other associations like that. So it's a really complex role, and it's going to continue to evolve and grow, and I'll be doing more and more actually as time goes on, but it gives me an opportunity to be creative with my marketing skill set, which at USA Wrestling, it was more so of the content side. I do have a degree with marketing emphasis too. So I have a journalism undergrad and I have a master's, which is it's a MBA, but with the marketing emphasis. So I have both sides to the coin. So I know the entire ecosystem. I just happen to be on the marketing side right now.
In terms of how wrestling marketing has changed, when you got hired at USA Wrestling, it was probably one of the most pivotal moments in our sport. And you got thrown right into the fire with the Save Olympic Wrestling movement. And, you were creating Google Hangouts. You took the social media platforms and created stunning graphics and things of that nature. And, there's the social media marketing, and then there's the traditional marketing, the email marketing and things like that. But as far as the sport of wrestling goes, it seems like we're always late adopters to stuff. What have you done to kind of not be a late adopter in the sport of wrestling and bring things that the regular business world and sports world uses to promote their brands and promote their products, that the end user or the subscriber or the fan gets the benefit of? And how has that changed since you jumped in 2013 when we had to save our freaking sport from the Olympics?
That's a deep question, but a great question to ask. I think, let me take a step back and kind of explain where I was in 2013. I got hired in December 2012. So you left.
I left Thanksgiving. My last day was October of 2012.
October of 2012, yeah. So I'm sitting there probably late, let's call it November 2012. I'm sitting in a computer lab on the University of Oklahoma campus, which that's where I went to undergrad. I wrestled for OU, and then I was working on a master's degree as my first semester as a master's student. I'm sitting in the computer lab. I worked 3 jobs. I coached some high school wrestling. I was doing an internship with the Oklahoma City Barons, who were at the time essentially the Edmonton Oilers, if you want to get technical about it, because it was the NHL lockout year. So the Oilers were down in Oklahoma City, and I was their PR guy.
If they weren't in Nur Sultan in the KHL, they were in Oklahoma City.
I'm a big Barry's Hockey Club fan.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's Barry's. It's a snow leopard.
Snow leopards, yes.
Got a couple of those up here.
Yeah, they're fantastic. I've got the hoodie, it's a hoodie zip up.
Like hell when they bite, though.
Oh, it's fantastic. So, yeah, I was sitting there in the computer lab. I worked I think until 1 or 2 a.m. every night. 3 jobs. You're just trying to make ends meet as a college student. And I forget what it was, but did I add you on LinkedIn or something?
Well, you'd added me on Facebook.
On Facebook.
In Fargo when you were an intern. And
right.
And I remember that popped in. You showed up as like people you may know on LinkedIn.
Right, okay.
It's like, oh, that's the guy. You might have added me. And then I started reading your profile. Whoa, yeah. Journalism degree. Yeah. Wait, what?
Yeah, for sure. So whatever mechanism, I just remember we connected over a chat. And I'm sitting in this room, it's my 5th year at OU, working on my master's degree. I don't really have... I've done a couple internships, but I don't have a concrete plan of this is where I'm going to be in 5 years. I don't know if anyone ever really does. I
wanted to be a senior by that time because it took me 7.
So yeah, I talked with Jason. We kind of talked about the job a little bit, your situation that you were leaving, and that maybe I would be someone good to apply, right? So I applied, went through the process. And, December 2012, Gary Abbott calls me. I took the job.
Pretty tough competition for that gig, too.
That's also an interesting story. I told that to my coworkers the other night for the first time. That's my sports engine side coworkers. So we went out for a little happy hour for my 30th birthday. Another topic I'm sure we'll dive into. Yeah, she might kill me for saying this, but... My wife was the other finalist for the...
And both of you who I'd suggested for the position, too.
Yeah. So that is a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, and we'll do that. What's going to happen is just so you know, this is not the only time Richard's going to be over here doing this. When we get the bar built, we'll have more of the storytelling moments of things in wrestling.
I'd rather tell that with Amanda over here, too. Yeah. I think that'd be a good back and forth.
I don't know if I want to be in the room with both of you because I was getting it from both sides on that one.
Yeah.
You want to talk about middleman? Jeez.
Yeah. Oh, to be so lucky. Anyway, I took the job.
I drink beer and I know things.
Yes. Tyrion. It's hard to recall exactly how everything went down, but I remember waking up one day. I'd been on the job at USA for less than 2 months. So I'm still, if you've taken a new job before, you know how it is. It's
like February 13th, I think.
Yeah, it was.
Was that or Valentine's Day? It was 13th or 14th.
I remember waking up to my phone, probably 20 missed calls, like at 6 a.m., right?
Mountain time zone, Mike.
Yeah. 20 missed calls, 20 texts, just, hey, get into the office, emergency, all that type of stuff. What the heck is going on? I specifically remember a text from Nate Immel that he was like, hey, can you give me some more insight on what's going on here? I have no clue. I don't know why Nate sticks out in my head, but I remember reading a text from Nate. Nate was actually one of the first people that I got to know out there. Let's see. I think he might have been the first person I interviewed. My first day that I went to the training center, I interviewed Matt Lindland before he was the head coach of the Greco team, Nate Immel, and Chase Pammy. And that was right before Urigan. Chase was going to Urigan. He was the only one going to Urigan. And I had no clue who Nate Immel was. Gary was just like, yeah, he's a good guy to talk to. Just go interview him. And Matt Lindland, no clue who he was. And are you looking at your watch?
No, I'm seeing as it says potential spam.
Oh, okay.
Through, so.
I was like, man, we're already brushing up on time here.
No, I'm hanging up the spam call. I'm not trying to be I've already plugged in my phone while you were talking. That was the first rude thing I've done. The second thing I'm going to do is look at my watch. The third is I'm going to get a beer in a second.
Yeah, maybe that'll...
Well, keep talking. I'll get the beverages.
Okay. Yeah, so long story short, I think, well, it might be long story medium right now. Got to the office and it was kind of crash course in how to deal with crisis management, right? And you go through classes in school or you go through different case studies and you're taught what it means to go through crisis management. But you don't know what it means until you're in it. That's the difference.
Yeah. For some people, crisis management is quoting Arnold Schwarzenegger from Twins going, the first rule in a crisis situation. I don't know. That movie came out before you were born, by the way. Wait a minute. Maybe. Maybe.
When did the movie come out?
I don't know. Was it late 80s or early 90s? That's that's the close one.
Well, tweet us at Jason and Brian.
Well, by the time they hear this, we're going to have it looked up.
It's fine. It's all for...
Right now I'm going with the Finnegan's Punk Arse. It's a coffee porter.
Nice. I almost went with that. I could have used a little juice, but I'm good right now with the
wow, I feel like
bunny run.
I feel like I'm on the inside trip. Crisis management, Olympics.
Crisis management. Yeah, it was wild. You know, I was kind of wide-eyed, you know, just out of college. This is my first real big thing that happened to me in my professional career in terms of I'm making decisions. Everything I do makes an impact, you know, whether it is just getting people on the phone and having them do stuff, organizing our thought leadership and how we align across different platforms. You know, what do? Do we make a new social media page? Do we just use the ones we have, but leverage those big audiences? Who do we reach out to? You know, what does this all actually mean? You don't know when you wake up and there's that crisis. All I heard was wrestling's gone. You know, that's all I heard. Like, we're screwed. I don't know if I have a job in a week. Like, that's all I heard.
Because it's an Olympic sport. For example, like when people, and I'm going to, a little side note on, when people criticize the Olympics and the IOC, and they say, well, we don't need the Olympics. Let's just do our own thing. You realize how crippling that will be to most every other country who gets their funding through the Olympic. And like if you go to USA Wrestling outside 6155 Lehman Drive, it says an Olympic and Pan American Committee, I think, or it was something like that. It's American. It says Pan American and Olympic on the sign. So the Pan American Games, the games, not the championship, the games and the Olympics are where the funding comes from. That's where the bonuses and things. And those other countries outside of, say, you know, Mother Russia that are funded by the government, you take an Olympic sport out of there, they're not going to fund it anymore. So yeah, okay, great. We've got our own thing, but guess what? No, there's no funding for those sports anymore. So that is a valid point. That what happens to USA Wrestling if, I don't know. It becomes an NGB for a sport that's not in the Olympics anymore. I mean, it's like working for Wushu or something.
Yeah, I mean, you lose that
bit of an extreme.
You lose the designation, and then you don't have that special factor about you. You're just every other organization, right? That's what it comes down to. I do contend that we should have a World Championships in an Olympic year. I think the World Championship should happen every year. That's perhaps another debate for another day, but I agree the Olympics are the most important event in wrestling. That said, I think wrestling should sustain itself and believe that it is more than just an Olympic sport. You know what I mean? And also I like the fact of having a World Championships every year, mainly because I'm tired of writing 4-time world champion and 2-time Olympic champion and having to explain to everyone that it's the same thing, but it's not the same thing.
Well, and to illustrate that point, like you know, one of your former coworkers, Taylor Miller, caught hell for the way she just simply wrote a sentence because she had to designate that Helen was a medalist in an Olympic year at a non-Olympic World Championships.
Yep,
it's a hard way. You know, it's a hard designation. We have so many nuances in our sport that now even our media professionals have to write nuanced.
Well, the thing is,
you've been there.
Wrestling has a hard time of getting out of its own way sometimes.
Yep.
You know, there's no other way to slice it. That's just what it is. And maybe we're going down a rabbit hole here, but you know, wrestling needs, if it wants to become more than what it is currently, it has to figure out ways where it's more consumable to the masses, right? You and I are always gonna follow it and love it. It's a very passionate sport.
We're not the avatar of most wrestling organizations. Yeah, you know, there's the diehards, which you know you're going to subscribe to BTN, the Flow, to Track, to Amateur Wrestling News. You're going to get the Open Mat. You're going to be on Rockfin. Those people is a very small population of people that actually are involved in the sport.
Right, and I think it's definitely improved year over year, especially since when I first got to USA Wrestling and really saw the whole scope of the wrestling ecosystem or community. I mean, it's a worldwide thing. You know, it's just a matter of how do you go from that niche sport where I'll give you a great example. So I work with this woman who is one of our graphic designers. She went to the Minnesota-Ohio State duel, has never seen a wrestling match in her life, had no clue what wrestling was, but she works with me on some track wrestling stuff. So she was like, I'm going to go check it out just because I think it's a good idea for me to see what wrestling's all about. She walked in there. She had a friend who was able to sit down and explain things to her. So I asked her how it was after the fact. She loved it. She had no clue what wrestling was, or what it really was at its core. She loved it. She was really confused about the rules. It took her a while to pick up on the rules and everything. But the fact that she sat down at a dual meet for 2 hours with someone who was sitting there who was a wrestler, a big fan, could ask questions, and we now have a new fan in wrestling. She did say, I have no idea why you'd want to be a wrestling official because that guy just got yelled at nonstop. Which I thought, valid point.
Good thing she didn't go to Carver Hawkeye.
Yeah, I know. But it's those kinds of people that I'm listening to that I think are more important to hear if you really think that you want to achieve this grow wrestling thing that everyone talks about. It's such a broad concept, but if you want to bring in more people to enjoy the sport, you've got to see how someone from the outside can enjoy the sport and would enjoy the sport. It's a different way of thinking, right? It's just like what I did to you. I flipped the camera around, or
right.
Flipped the mic around.
So with that point being brought up is something I've always looked at is there's the disconnect between the high school fan and the college fan. One time Nick Simmons is ranked number 1 in the country one time, and I think I was announcing the Virginia State tournament, and I'm like, holy crap, Nick Simmons got beat. And I'm at the Virginia High School State tournament, and the guy goes, who's Nick Simmons? I go, he's ranked number 1 in the country, All-American from Michigan State. Oh, I don't follow college. How? I don't believe there's that much of a disconnect between the high school basketball fan that doesn't know what in the heck's going on with the melee between Kansas and Kansas State. Or what's going on with Duke Carolina every year. It's just weird that we have this once our high school wrestlers in a lot of ways get out of wrestling, they're done. Although how many high school wrestlers can go up and pick up a mat and just start scrapping with somebody after college versus a basketball player can just go to a court and just start throwing the ball up there. My neighbor loves playing basketball. He's got a court in his backyard. Well, it's not like I have a mat in my backyard because I definitely don't want that to happen. But the point is we talk about the casual fan almost in a pejorative sense in some ways now because, well, we're not trying to lure them and we need to take care of us before we take care of anybody else. And from somebody who at 15 years old was that person that went to that dual meet, or my wife's friend Carly, who now goes with her dad to Minnesota duels. I remember getting a text, oh my God, why did I know about this sport earlier? Hot guys beating each other up in spandex. Now, granted, different way to market the sport, but she's gone back. She had these big cutouts of Storley and Steinhaus and Gopher Junkie now. So, it only takes one good experience, but it also, on the flip side, take one bad experience to say, I'm never doing this again.
You bring up a lot of great points, and everything you just said could actually be explained by marketing strategy. So you have 2 points, right? The first one, you have the high school versus college disconnect. Mm-hmm. Okay. So in high school, what it comes down to is your target audience. If you've ever heard that term as a marketer, what's your target audience? So a high school audience is more than likely a parent.
Mom, dad, grandma, aunt, uncle.
Family member. Someone who really cares about Jimmy and Joe, Jill, whoever's wrestling, and that's it. That's their investment in the sport, right? They've got 3 other sports that their kids are doing. They're busy, they're shuffling around. You're a parent, you get what it's like, right? So,
or perhaps a high school student that's like they're from a small town and everything revolves around the high school.
Yes, exactly. So then you take it another level to the college and in the wrestling sphere, the UWW, the USA Wrestling, the Olympic trials, that type of level. Then we're talking about going from a family member to a fan of the sport, someone who is really engaged. So you're either engaged on the college level with your team or with a specific individual. That doesn't mean that I'm a fan of the University of Oklahoma because I went there. I don't necessarily know who Nick Simmons is for Michigan State, right? Because I just follow Oklahoma and I want to see them do well. So that's my fandom. And then as you go up further, you have I'm an American, I love Jordan Burroughs. I love Kyle Snyder. I love Helen Maroulis. Like, that's even intense, like more intense fandom. So you have two completely different audiences in the same segment or in the same market, right? Which it's confusing. Like, I have to deal with this daily. I have to identify like who actually wants to read this thing that I'm putting out there.
Or with the streaming situation, the Gold Plus versus the a la carte, or as I say, a la carte, like, okay, well, why isn't this part of the subscription? Well, these people are only going to watch this event and they're not going to watch anything else. So you get into that, okay, where does this go? Does it go subscription? Does it go one-off? You get the tournament directors involved in that. So, I mean, there's so many different moving parts to where wrestling marketing is going.
Right. And then the second point is you have two different types of strategy that you're going after. So you have acquisition, which is what I was talking about and what you were talking about with that new person, someone who's not invested in wrestling. How do we bring them in? How do we acquire them to become a fan of the sport? That journey is going to be different than someone who we want to retain. So we want to deepen a relationship with someone we already have, right? That's where you go from parent to fan, or from athlete to fan, or from coach to super fan, or, you know, those types of situations. So it's all within the same ecosystem, within the same market, but there's so many different subsets of that you have to attack and think about. So the people who love tournaments and hate duels, yeah, you might be right for some things, but conversely, the people who love duels and think tournaments are outdated, yeah, you might be right too. So there's a lot of ambiguity as to what's right and what's wrong. You just have to, you know, do your research beforehand, do your planning, test again, experiment, you know, try different tactics. And, you know, hopefully at the end of the day, you just become a little bit smarter day by day as to how you can impact that economy. And then over the long term, that's your play, the long-term approach. If you want to long-term grow, quote unquote, grow wrestling, that market, that economy, then you have to do things on a daily basis to impact it. So wrestlers, coaches, parents, athletes, you, people in the different organizations, all impact wrestling on a daily basis, but you have to be intentional with that impact, right? So that's a very high level philosophical way I can analyze the wrestling market.
Using those factors, when we spin this back to the Olympic wrestling thing and save Olympic wrestling and keep Olympic wrestling and the complete changeover, because if I recall, you didn't have too many interactions with the previous regime, and I'm going to use that word regime with FILA versus UWW, and now you've got a media team, a marketing team. They work together, and both of us have been involved in that respect. And now we've also seen it kind of from both sides on what's happened, from an event being like a Junior World Championships being held in a just horrible gym in Thailand to, you know, a World Championship debacle in Tashkent that was already awarded before the new regime took over, and then how they have basically gone from, okay, we're going to make this an event. There's things that are unique, and there's like, I think Foley calls it a digital signature or something like that, or sonic identity, I think is another buzzword that's being used. But you go to the World Championships in Paris, then you go to the World Championships in Budapest, and then you see how awesome they were in Nur-Sultan. You're seeing consistency through it. And even though it is an 8-9 day event, it's like, wow, it's not just a sterile, let's get them out of here as soon as possible. So, I mean, the governing body, the International Federation, has really done a good job at marketing their own sport and also improving the product. So there's something actually there to market. So what have you seen from what they've done compared to, you know, February 2013?
Absolutely. It's, I think, to your point, February 2013 is when wrestling changed for the better. You know, through the bad came a lot of good. UWW, previously FILA, you know, they're not a perfect organization. No organization is perfect, right? But the strides they have made are tremendous. I mean, I can't tell you how tremendous these strides are. I mean, you touched on it, right? You go to the events and you just see the effort. You know, there's the detail. It's attention to detail. Whereas before it was like, all right, there's going to be maybe there'll be some Wi-Fi there. Maybe there's not going to be Wi-Fi. It doesn't really matter. If you want to ask someone about Wi-Fi, good luck finding someone.
We don't need a 4-hour break. Let's just start the mental matches.
Yeah, let's just go, There's a lot of forethought and attention to detail and planning with what you see now from UWW, and they've scaled tremendously on their digital efforts. Their digital marketing efforts are
their
great.
Events have value, whereas in the past, if maybe it was streamed great, well, now they've got teams selling those rights, and so you've got a better presentation team, you've got more robust presentation in terms of you got two teams. I think Foley called them what we get, the Germans and the Slavs. Yeah, it's like the ones from Serbia and the ones from Germany. They're the different video teams, and then everything looks the same no matter where you're at for the most part.
Absolutely. Everything looks the same.
Consistency to a viewer is huge. I mean,
branding. It goes back to branding. They changed their brand. The new name, new logo, new look, new feel.
The flying white rabbit.
Yes,
that's what I think the logo looks like. By the way, I think it looks like a flying white rabbit.
Yeah. That's pretty good.
There it is, right there. Okay, up there. I think it looks like a flying white rabbit.
Yeah, maybe the ears. I can see it.
Looks like a Matt Groening, the guy who wrote The Simpsons, had a old comics involving rabbits.
Right. But before, you didn't have your flying white rabbit logo that said World Championships.
You had a double globe and Fila.
Yeah, and most of the time it was a different look for every single event. You didn't know what you were going to get. Every time I've gone, at least recently, there's been someone to take care of me. If I had questions, I can get answers. Everyone's accommodating. And you don't
just land at the airport going, okay, now what?
Now what? Yeah, because gosh, that can be overwhelming in some areas of the world. But I don't know how to quantify the strides that we've made in terms of how wrestling has positioned itself as a sport, but it is. I keep saying tremendous. Like, that's a very impactful word, tremendous. USA Wrestling is doing it with their events. UWW is doing it with their events. The NCAA continues to set the standard in terms of the show, right? The NCAA finals, the NCAA semifinals, that session 4 on Friday night. And those will be happening right down the street from us this year, so we can talk about
we're
that.
About 15 from where we sit. 15 minutes from where do you live? We're probably about the same distance away.
It takes me probably about 30 minutes to get to.
You're 30.
To the U.S. Bank. Yep.
About 15 from where we sit here.
Yeah. So, and you're seeing it applied now to dual meets. You got the smoke and the mirrors and the lights and all this for dual meets, and that creates an exciting environment. You're seeing. I can't remember a time where dual meets have been so well attended. I walked into the Minnesota-Ohio State match. I mean, yeah, Minnesota's a popular wrestling hotbed, if you will. Ohio State's a great team, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be sold out or packed house, And it is. And on top of that, the people are into it. They're cheering. They're excited. There's not this lull where, you lose interest and you don't retain that casual viewer. So, yeah, it's been remarkable to see that.
Yeah, because in places like Missouri and Virginia Tech and even North Carolina have put events on stages and theaters. High schools are starting to do it now. I think Buffalo did it this year. So they're the unique thing that helped sell wrestling was you could do it anywhere. We did it on a boat. We did it in Times Square. We did it in a subway station. Yep. We did it at the Acropolis or wherever the Athena tournament was. Helen went over there to wrestle that. I mean, there have been so many different places that we can put a wrestling mat and put a crowd into it. So it's the marketability that I think that squash was trying to market that. Well, you can put this box anywhere. Well, it's an $80,000 box.
Right.
Okay.
It's a little different.
Yeah, sure. You could play squash in the base of the pyramids of Giza. Fine. That's fine. But the wrestling mat, while it might get hot, it's easier to roll up and down. But again, with the marketing, and that's one thing that's been really cool to see is even, we give UWW credit, but also the effort from the NCAA. And of course, those are two organizations people just love to hate. And these are two organizations that I have received a check from. So full disclosure. But, back in the old days, tickets were cheap, but they were on college campuses. They were not major league events. The first event that went off campus was in Albany, which in my experience was the worst. Well, then they went to Kansas City. Then they went to St. Louis. Now we've had them in Madison Square Garden. We're about to sell more than 40,000 tickets at a football stadium and expose the sport to so many people. And I'm not just saying that because I live here and I don't have to get on a plane. No, I actually like flying. I like traveling. I love that platinum Delta status life. But the thing is the NCAA has got dedicated social media people. And it's not just wrestling that they've got it, but they're writing stuff. I mean, it started with Roger Moore. Now Shannon Scoville's been writing stuff, routinely, and they're also covering Division II, Division III. They're really, now they've got emerging sports status coming. So the NCAA has done a really good job, and guys like Anthony Holman have really kind of upped the championships game. And there's a professionalism to it where, you know what? They're being a little bit more meticulous with who gets media credentials. They're no longer. Mike McCormick, the referee, told me that when his dad was reffing, that he was on the floor hanging out with his dad when he was a kid. Kids aren't hanging out with their parents and things like it's not a sideshow. It's not just an anything goes. It's a professional sporting event. It's like you try to get on the floor at an NBA game. Ain't going to happen. Same thing at the NCAA championship. So there's a professional presence and presentation to it that goes, okay, this is worth the money. This is a big deal. I mean, it's been really cool to see what the NCAA has done in just the last, I think it was this 19 or 20 for me coming up. So it's been a lot even since 2002.
Yeah, I agree. You touched on professionalism. If you want to be taken seriously, you have to act as such, right?
And you have to have a value to your product, because if there's no value, there's no value.
Yeah. Well, and how do you build value? That's the real question. How do you build value in wrestling? How do you build value in events? How do you build value in the, Campbell Appalachian State Duel? How do you build value in that versus, and we want to have that same impact when someone goes to that duel as Iowa Penn State? How do you translate that across the board? So
I've been trying to get the SIDs to at least, and it's not their call, but I've been trying to get them to report the attendance, because some places still don't. They don't charge admission, they don't take attendance. So that's the hardest thing to track. Is there are some good crowds in some places that, we don't track it, so we can only guess. And I'm like, well, let's maybe put it's probably costs them more to pay the person to take the money than the money they'll bring in, which is what you run into. But, and some of the focus goes on the coaches too. A lot of those older coaches that never did any marketing, it wasn't their responsibility. Well, they've been recycled over. I mean, look at the marketing that the Campbell and the Appalachian states are doing in the Southern Conference, and we're seeing. I think there was a graphic that came out, one of the sports graphics. I'm sure you know which company it is. Something Stack or whatever that monitors social reach. Like Penn State wasn't even in the top 20, but you looked at the schools that were, and it's like, oh wow, these are not necessarily your traditional powers with engaging in social media. So, and a lot of that also falls on the coaches too, that are realizing that, Chris Bono, when he was at South Dakota State, get jacked Mondays and now jump around Monday at Wisconsin. So coaches are getting behind it. So it's, lots changed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Didn't really have a finish for that. I'm just thinking that's the best way I could sum it up, is lots changed. I had no buzzword. I had no soundbite.
No buzzwords.
Except I'm drinking this punk arse.
It's pretty good.
You still got the red hot.
I think your original question off of that was
how the NCAA is done. We've talked how well the UWW is done, but how about the NCAA as a whole?
Well, yeah, I think philosophically, wrestling as a whole has done a great job of creating value.
Except for the Virginia High School League.
Yeah,
they suck.
Maybe condense. I'll just say that. That's the buzzword of the day.
And maybe one of us will get credentials to the Minnesota State High School League tournament this year.
I'm not applying for credentials.
Yeah. I got 2 Olympic credentials here. Guess what? You know how many I got from Minnesota? 1.
Yeah.
Side note.
That's fascinating. But yeah, I think, I could talk about this all day, man. This is kind of my wheelhouse, but I'm really,
because we're literally I've got 10 topics down that we're going to discuss. We got 2.
We'll put a pause on that. What's next? What do you got?
Well, I was talking about the development for photography. First, let's get back to this ties to the marketing. And if you listen to the show, you heard the pitch, the promo at the beginning, the 7-in-7 party that's coming to Cowboy Jacks, which is, if you've ever been to a Minnesota Twins game and you're hitting that parking garage right there off, I think you're coming off, is it 94? And you come off, there's this big Cowboy Jacks with an outdoor deck that's usually packed for Twins games. I'm assuming it's going to be packed for Vikings games because I've never been there, but we're going to pack it for wrestling.
Track Wrestling and Sports Engine, along with J-Rob Wrestling Camps, is putting together this kickoff party on Wednesday night before the NCAA Championship. So 7and7party.com. Tickets are limited. There's not a whole lot available, but there's still an option now. We've already had Dan Gable announced. Randy Lewis has been announced as another speaker. 7 speakers, 7 minutes to echo the 7 minutes thing. Logan Storley is going to be the latest one released. And, let's just talk about the genesis of the idea of having a true kickoff party.
Yeah, so you got to give J-Rob Camps all the credit on this. They reached out to us and said, hey, we have this idea because everyone's coming to Minnesota for this weekend. And we were just kind of thinking, where do people go?
Drinking.
Right. But everyone is kind of on their own, if you will. Even if you get in Wednesday, tournament starts Thursday.
I like getting in Tuesday because
I do too,
where you scope
personally.
it out. Yeah.
But a lot of people can't take off all that time. So they get in Wednesday night. You need a place to go, hang out, be around, and mingle with your wrestling people, right? So that was the genesis of the idea. Let's get a lot of passionate wrestling people into one place where they can really celebrate at the start of this weekend, and on top of that, we'll bring in some speakers, some people that you're really interested in hearing from, to kind of share their life story or share their wrestling experience, right? And on top of that, raise some money for a good cause at the same time. So all the proceeds from the event are going to go to Take Down Cancer, and that in itself is a reason to attend, if anything. Beyond that, you're going to hear from Dan Gable. You're going to hear from Randy Lewis, Logan Storley. There will be 4 other speakers that will be announced at a later date, depending on when you listen to this. But the announcements will be coming soon. And they're all going to be tremendously talented, relevant individuals that someone you'd want to hear from, right? Someone that wrestling has impacted in one way or another. We'll have other things too. Like we're going to do a raffle type thing where I know for us, we're going to give away 2 tickets to the Track Wrestling Suite. So we have a suite at the stadium, football stadium.
Sweet.
So you'll get 2 tickets. Yeah, sweet. Nice.
That's natural there. That's not like, that is a sweet.
Yeah. Working on some other things, maybe some gear packs, from some colleges, stuff like that where we can amplify the charitable giving that we're able to do through this event. But it's a couple hours, you go 7and7party.com, I think is the URL. You can see all the info there if you want to attend. It's just going to be a good place to start off your NCAA weekend. I'll be there. I think you'll be there.
Yeah, because if you're listening and you're a member of the Media Association, make sure your dues are paid up because limited number of our Media Association colleagues will be able to get tickets based on their membership. So I'm covering that from a Media Association role. So hint, hint, nudge, nudge, check your dues. Mr. Vice President here, by the way.
Yes, Vice President.
So we do not have a quorum in this room.
It's going to be a good time, man.
2 of the 5 officers are sitting 5 feet from one another, but we cannot quite make it. Although we have a picture of the third. We
do. I guess Tony counts.
Tony counts. Okay.
The other thing that I will say is that there will be more than 7, quote unquote featured guests there. I think I think I can say this, but we're talking about getting the 2001 Minnesota team, having all the 10 All-Americans together. So different, obviously like higher level wrestlers, world champions, NCAA champions.
You can't throw a rock and not hit an Olympian in Minnesota. There's like 5 of them from Anoka, which is 10 minutes up.
There's going to be a lot of people that you can just mingle with. Like, oh, hey, there's so-and-so. Let's have a great conversation. I've always wanted to ask him about that NCAA finals.
Kind of like where Tommy Bloodround went up to Jim Gibbons at the World Cup in Iowa City and asked him about the whole no shit comment. You can have that opportunity. You too can ask Jim Gibbons about the no shit comment.
Yeah. So, thanks for letting me speak to that. Again, it's going to be a great event. Hope everyone can come out. Tickets are on sale online, and you'll want to buy ahead because you get a free drink or drink ticket. So
you can also do that here. Well, never mind. I'm not even going to talk about late night here because I don't think people realize that. Yeah, if I'm going to have some friends, over at the end of the event. I don't have enough room for as many people as I think that want to come.
You have one spare bed and
Well, it's a double, so you can probably get 4 25-pounders in there.
But only 2 57-pounders.
Somebody can sleep on the trampoline. It's a small one. And we got there's a couple different places to crash. But as we wrap up, I mean, there's a lot of things that when you and I talk, we can always unpack a ton of different things. And actually, I was looking at the list. Actually, we did hit a couple of things.
Good.
And what we didn't really hit was some of the, I want you to tell me 2 stories from here on out. We got in this short time, no pun intended, that we got left.
Nice plug.
Tell me one story about life in your 30s already, because you just celebrated your 30th birthday.
Oh yeah.
And one interesting story about you and Amanda both being a wrestling power couple, so to speak.
Man, that's tough. Well, I don't have a lot in terms of the 30 story because I turned 30 like 3 weeks ago. So in the last 3 weeks,
let me tell you about my 40s real quick. It's called this hairline here. Abby's been 40 for all of 6 days.
Well, you're a lucky man, by the way.
Yeah, she let me build this.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
100%.
She walks in here, she goes, I feel like I'm having a seizure.
30's great. I have no complaints. It only really hit me like the day of. My birthday was on a Friday, and it was when that snowstorm came in and everyone was freaking out about the snow. So we kind of canceled all my festivities, and I just sat there and worked, and I actually worked later than I should have because everyone left the office early, and I've got a Jeep. So kind of, as you're sitting there, you kind of reflect a little bit on your life, and like, man, it's been 30 years. Also, it's kind of funny that
my next 30 years will know the best. I don't know all the words.
Okay, Tim McGraw. I will say that
don't take the girl. Another Tim McGraw. Yeah. Anyway,
it's. I'm looking forward to the rest. Or what's in front of me, I should say. I've reflected on what's behind me the last 30 years, and it's kind of crazy to think I'm here right now because of everything that's happened in my last 30 years, right? And all the ups and downs and the different twists and turns that I've had in 30 years. But it's been a pretty transformational year for me in the fact that I got married, I moved to Minnesota, I took a new job, I turned 30. There's a lot of stuff that's been going on. So,
and if I must say so myself, you also, I've got a killer wife. You also have an absolutely amazing awesome human being. I've known Amanda longer than I've known my wife. So, like I said, it's pretty cool to see when 2 of your friends hit it off. It's always really cool from an outsider's perspective. So 1, I'm stoked for you. And 2, I still need to get that back-ordered wedding present to you guys.
Yeah. If only if we lived close.
It's not my fault. I'm waiting for it to get delivered.
It's
been on back order since August.
Gosh, yeah. So, in terms of 30, I don't have a good story for you
yet. You got a decade coming for you.
It's been pretty tame so far. The only thing that's really happened is that the rescheduled happy hour that one of my colleagues' cars got broken into, so that kind of stinks. I feel kind of bad about that, but I did try out Indeed for the first time, which was good. So
Indeed Brewing.
Yes, yeah. I like Indeed. I think I'm a fan of Indeed.
Maybe that's what we got to figure this out to where like we will do the traveling tap room podcast wrestling tour.
I could do that
because I've done one from Insight with the Guillotine Grapevine when I had Jordan Holm and I had there was who was Joe Rao was still in town, and there was
chat with Rao.
Sanders was mad because he goes, "That's my favorite brewery." And you didn't even go Pat Smith. I mean, that's Insight's a good spot. That's right off of 280 here. It's actually pretty close. And then Fair State's a good one. I was up at Jack Pine this weekend, but I was not at Hayden Zilmer's place. I was in a place called Jack Pine Brewing. They've got the jalapeno cream ale in there. I was wondering if you were going to sample that with me. But,
maybe after we shut the mics off.
Yeah, maybe not. Depends on Raging Cornhole of Fire. We'll talk about that later. But
what was the last question?
It was about. Tell me a story about being a wrestling power couple right now. Even though Amanda's technically not in wrestling at the moment, she's still in. She's doing stats at a match last week.
That's a great example.
And like that is like I watched the Penn State Iowa duel with my wife on her birthday at a lodge in northern Minnesota. So I think I had a winner there. Your wife is sitting there doing stats and not working for anybody because it's in her DNA to like, okay, how many takedowns, how many stall calls? It's like crazy.
Yeah.
And tweeting the picture and I'm like, yes.
She did that. She actually did that for the Penn State Iowa match too. We were sitting on the couch watching it, and she was like, "I want to do the scorebook."
I think my wife needs to spend more time with your wife.
She actually, after the Penn State Iowa match, went to Dick's to see if they had a wrestling scorebook so she could just keep score. They didn't, but
that might be where we end this show, man. Amanda's never made an appearance on the show. We got to get both of you guys on the show.
I feel like, yeah, you should interview her. She's got some great stuff. I won't give away all the details, but
just for some backstory, Amanda used to be the sports information director, GA at Iowa State, where she was an undergrad, and then went to a couple places, work with the NAIA for wrestling, and then landed at Purdue. And while she was at Purdue, you guys met, and then you moved to Purdue to work as a banker, financial, whatever. And then all of a sudden,
I was a marketer.
You were marketing for a credit union at Purdue,
financial product.
And then both of you got the job here, and then all of a sudden, now you're Minnesotans.
Yes, and I'll tell you
she spent a long time in wrestling, so
she did. I'll get back to her in a second. You brought up a good point that I think is valid. Is that I moved to Indiana to be with her, right? And I took a job in a different line of work. Same line of work, right? Marketing, but something I wasn't necessarily like the most passionate about. I don't get passionate about, hey, here's 10% off your personal loan, or whatever. But I think important to wrestlers and to people, even non-wrestlers, right? But the lessons you learn in wrestling is that you try to make the most out of the situation that you're in, right? You get hit in a move, someone hits a single leg on you. You're not necessarily expecting it, but the counter, like, okay, I've got to work myself out of this. I was able to use that to my advantage and just learn from being in a different situation, right? And it made me better today. I'm 100% confident that I would not be the marketer, the professional I am today if I didn't go through that experience. If I had stayed at USA Wrestling and kept doing what I was doing, I would be the same as I was 3 years ago, whenever that was, 2 years ago. But I challenged myself by going into something different. I learned. And it's crazy to think that you would go from writing and covering and, doing media for USA Wrestling to over here, and I'm marketing to Purdue students, essentially people in West Lafayette.
You work at a bank or credit union, trying to get people that have no money to save their money.
Right. Yeah. So it's a completely different thing, but you're able to apply it from this situation to that situation. And, maybe I wasn't as fulfilled and passionate about like what I was doing every day, but if you go in with the right mentality of, you know what? I can learn something from this. I'm challenging myself. I'm pushing myself. How do I get better? Well, just being around different people, number one, broadens your horizons, makes you better. But number two, you're able to evaluate what you have going on and see where your strengths and your weaknesses are. Because if I'm not passionate about it, it's different, right? Mm-hmm. We can sit here and talk wrestling all night. But if I challenged you and I said, let's have a conversation for an hour without mentioning wrestling or ODU, what are we going to do?
Probably talk a lot about OU.
Yeah, well, we can throw them off the table too. But you're great at talking. You're great at doing interviews. But if I took that stuff off the table, you would have to figure out a way, right? Just like in a wrestling match, you have to figure out a way.
And that's one thing that again, to spin it the other way about, we've talked, you've got a great wife now. I've also got whereas from my perspective, like my wife, and this is something that's helped me as a human being and going through like Wrestling 411 for you, going through the bank situation. For me, Wrestling 411, moving out here, tanking was like made me better because I had to learn things that again, I used at that job at USA Wrestling, which then helped me here. So again, it's all kind of cyclical and ingrained, but There's craft beer. There's the 1967 to 1976 ABA.
Yeah.
There is defunct football leagues. There is semi-pro football. There is the Huey Lewis and the News greatest album ever, Sports, which is on the wall. So thankfully, I have a wife that's been able to keep me interested in other things other than wrestling. So you've got hiking, you've got Game of Thrones, you've got those things in common with your wife. I've got The Office, Porters, Dr. Mario in common with my wife, just on the surface. There's so much more there. I mean, but again, to the point, so we could talk about wrestling for hours, and we're over 1 hour.
I do want to say, though, because I said we get back to her, my wife is awesome, and you should have her on the show. I don't want to tell all her stories for her. So,
well, once we get the bar in here, that will be 3-4 microphones wired there, because I've got one now, and this is not the way we're going to do this show next time. But
yeah, it makes do, right?
I did also realize there's more OU on this wall on these walls than there probably is.
Dan Hodge over there. I saw an OU ticket for the NCAA's up there.
Yeah. What's that one right there?
Lloyd Noble Center.
1981.
How about that?
How about
April 4th.
Can you read the names off of that?
Let me see.
It's a little far away from here.
Yeah. Metzger. So, Andre Metzger, Dave Schultz. That's probably why it was at OU, right?
Yeah.
Dr. Death.
Yeah. Also on the wall, Jared Frayer. That's who I was talking to. I was talking to Frayer about knowing how much OU was on this wall here, because there's Frayer, there's Lloyd Noble, there's Dan Hodge, there's the ticket. So that's 4. Over here, we've got Kendall Cross from Oklahoma State. I'm not sure who's in that part of that amateur wrestling news photo. Then John Smith is signed over there. So, and then we got a Husker with Brad Veering. We got a Gopher with Garrett Lowney. We got all the Olympic teams. Anyway, you got bobblehead Gable. We got all sorts of things, but we got.
Let me end it with this.
End it.
What's your favorite one-liner or one moment from your PA career?
It's the best 15 words in sports, man.
Let me hear them.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the national anthem of the United States of America.
America. I like it.
Best thing ever. Best thing you can say as an announcer. End of the show. Here come the outtakes. Thanks for listening.
The Short-Time Wrestling Podcast is proudly outfitted by Compound Sportswear. Shirts, singlets, custom gear orders, everything you need. Call up Cliff and the crew at cmpteamwear.com. Hey, you know what? Did you like the show? You want to hit that subscribe button? MattalkOnline.com/listen. Various different ways to subscribe to this show on your favorite podcatcher of choice. And if you're already subscribed and you already listened and you love the show and you want to support this show and this network, MattalkOnline.com/join the team. Become a team member today.
Does this thing go down, or is it just...
It doesn't move up and down. It's just,
okay.
Let's see. Is it just trying not to hit the table as much as possible? That's why I'm going to get the boom arms.
How now, Brown Cow?
Syphilis. I am recording, by the way.
How now?
I'm just going to lead the show with that. It's called a cold open.
How now, Bunny Run?
Speaking of cold open, what do you think of the cold open beer we've got? Bunny Run?
I think it's pretty good.
Yeah. I think you're going to hear some beer cans popping here. Maybe more than one. So, Short Time Wrestling Podcast, episode 590. Oh, wait, because Richard got a text. Beep. Outtake.
Sorry.
Beep. I actually started putting those outtakes on the end of the show, like when I was doing the shots.
That's actually pretty good. That's not a bad idea. That whole bumper that you just did.
Just put this whole thing on the end. Yeah,
might just be good.
That's the end of the show.
Like after the
you suck, Claunch. Just throw those things in there. Don't rock on because Claunch, you suck. Okay, rock on.